Well, hello, welcome to the Trailheads Radio Show. Thank you for joining us tonight. Join me and my special guest, Mr. John Byner, in a few seconds. Thank you, and join us in a few. Okay, my first question to you is, how did you get started in the industry? How did your career begin? You grew up in Elmhurst, Queens, New York. How did you get started in the industry?
Well, I tell you the truth, I did some shows in the service in the Navy, and when I got out of the Navy, I got married shortly thereafter, and I had some kids shortly thereafter, and I needed some money, so I took my act into a nightclub not far from my home. I saw a sign that said entertainment every Saturday night, so I put my suit on and I went into there, and I did my voices and my this and my that, and that was my first job. I got to do shows at that place every Saturday night, 2 shows.
Wow.
Yeah. So that led to going into Manhattan to do a JFK contest. Von Meter had made a record of the president at the time, and it was very popular, and we all were doing JFK in their act, and myself, and I went in and I won that thing, and in that night I met my manager of 22 years, a man named Harry Columbi, who helped me get out to West Coast and all that good stuff.
Absolutely, and you mentioned Von Meter. He was another great impressionist for JFK,
yes.
but his career kind of took a sudden halt, and
Yeah, it was a shame. I saw him on the street in Hollywood one day pushing a basket, from a supermarket, pushing a basket. He didn't have anything in it, and his hands were all yellow from smoking cigarettes. I asked him how he was and what he was doing, and he was playing piano in a little bar, trying to make a few bucks.
Mm.
Yeah, it was quite a shock to him, but hey, what about the Kennedys,
Yeah.
Big shock to the world. But
yeah.
now that's not a happy thought. Now let's just get into something happy here.
Okay. Do you still do impressions? Are you still active in the industry today?
Well, yes, I do voices and voiceovers and this, that, and the other thing. Active. I'm in a movie that's going around the country at film festivals and getting a lot of honors and respect and all that good stuff. And it's a remake of a movie that was made in the 40s called Dead on Arrival, or DOA. Mm-hmm. And Edmund O'Brien was in it, and it's black and white. And we did it here in St. Augustine, and in black and white, and we had a very good time doing it. And that's what's going around. And let's see what else is going around. There's something else I should mention to you about what I'm doing. And I was just in an opera, believe it or not. Are you familiar with opera? Anything about opera?
A little bit, not too much.
Well, I'm a little bit myself, but I was called and asked to do a part that in a Die Fledermaus, and it was written many years ago by Strauss, I believe, and it's more or less makes fun of operas, and in the third act there's always a place for a comedian, and the opera company up in St. Augustine gave me a call and asked if I'd be interested in doing that, which I did. New Year's Eve and New Year's Day we performed that, and I went as they said when they called me that I could do anything I wanted to do, and I said I'd like to be as Groucho Marx from A Night at the Opera. Mm-hmm. And so I got into the mustache and the tuxedo and the whole thing, and I was Groucho Marx in the third act of Die Fledermaus. It's quite a kick. I'd never been in an opera before, and just when you think you've done everything, along comes an opera.
Absolutely. Just when you think you've done everything, something new comes along.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. Which is good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Going back to how you got started, how did you
when you started impressions, how did that come about? Did that come at an early age? How did you get
it came back suddenly, and I didn't even realize that I was doing something that would get that much attention from. I was the number 5 of the family of 6, and everybody else has got their attention in some way. You know, my brother was younger, and he was the baby of the and he got all this, and my older brother was the pain in the neck, getting in trouble, so he got his, and there I was in the middle, going do 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 do. At any rate, my mom, at 6 years old, my mom had taken me to the doctor to see. I needed glasses as a child, and she took me there to have checked, my eyes checked. And then coming back, she saw that there was a Bing Crosby movie playing in the local theater, and we went in to see the movie, and somebody looked it up that I talked to later on in life, and he said it was Here Come the Waves. It was back in the 40s, and early 40s. So war was going on, or just over, or something, and we went in and we saw this movie, and Bing Crosby did this song in the movie, in which I absorbed somehow without even realizing it, because when we got home, I know it's happening in my voice of all people. All my characters have a cold tonight. When we got home, my dad just got back from work, and he asked Mom what she had seen at the movie, and she said, "Let Johnny tell you." And I started doing Bing Crosby in my little 6-year-old voice, and doing accentuate the positive and the motions that he made, and they just couldn't believe it. And then when we had company, they marched me out there to have, to do my Bing Crosby thing for people, and I got to liking it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That's when the I guess the entertainment or acting bug bit you. Yes,
and you get a lot of encouragement from your family that if they're into it, it gives you a lot of faith in what you have.
Yeah, I'm 22 years old, and I started professionally with voiceovers and radio when I was 13, and I'm high-functioning autistic. I'm on the spectrum of autism, and...
Yeah, so your note said, yes.
Yeah.
And I appreciate what you're up to. You do things, and you're out there doing stuff.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
That's a wonderful thing. Yeah, it is indeed.
What has been the highest achievement of your career, the highlight of your career? Do you have any, do you think back on your facets of your career and think, wow, I did this? Do you have a particular highlight you were very proud of?
Well, there are a few highlights, and they are the people that my parents loved. And we'd listen to the radio. We didn't have television. We listened to the radio, all of us lying in bed in this very small house, and not the same bed, lying in our bed, and our cots, whatever, and listening to the radio, and the radio was, it was just wonderful to listen to those shows, and my father loved Bing Crosby, whom I worked with, and any time I worked with somebody that my parents knew, I had a feeling they were there, you know what I mean? I just had that much pride in what I was doing, and wherever they were in heaven, they'd know that I was with Bing Crosby, and working with him, and then Fred Astaire, and a couple other people that just other people that I knew my parents loved in the movies and what have you. Tony Martin, and my mother was a Tony Martin fan. And I got up to L.A. and I got to know him, and he had a couple of affairs that he was at. So it was all that kind of thing that stood out in my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember a project you did with Fred Astaire. It was a film called The Man in the Santa Claus Suit. It was...
Absolutely. You remember that. Good.
Remember that.
Good. That was fun. Yeah, he was quite the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you've worked with so many people and done so many things. You did your show Bizarre and did the Carol Burnett show, and...
Yeah, lots of things. 37 Johnny Carson shows and
18 Ed Sullivan.
However you put it. Ed Sullivan, 18 of those, and Soap for a couple of seasons. I was Detective Donahue. That was a nice deal. I like that. I like doing that.
Yeah. I liked you on Carol Burnett. You did one with Harvey Korman and Carol Burnett. You did a impersonation of Georgie Jessel. You were the preacher or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I did several of those, and that thing, the Donald Duck thing. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah.
I sent you that. Yes. And we had a good time. Harvey was great, a wonderful person to work. And Carol was like a sister. Monday morning when everybody'd show up for the first time in the wherever we were, where we were going to rehearse, the rehearsal room, she'd come in and it was, how are you? Everybody was just so comfortable to be around. It was a wonderful show to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of your work. As I said, I'm a fan, and you're one of the performers that stick out to me, because I can tell you want to make people laugh. That's one of your key elements in your performances.
Well, that's a favorite. Yeah, no question about it. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind acting. I've done several things that are the straight, or what they call it. I walked in at James Cagney's house one night. For the first time. I was there a couple of times, and this is what he said to me. He says, "Jono, I just saw you do something straight, and it was marvelous." So that's now every time I say I did something straight, it means I didn't do anything to get laughs. That's the thing.
Yeah. I remember a story. I was watching another interview you did, and you were talking about James Cagney, and he asked you, you thought he was going to ask you if you do him, but he said, do you do Jimmy Stewart? Yeah.
And I said, everybody does Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah.
And just as I was going to throw my Cagney, Donald O'Connor came over to me and he said, "Come on, let's give him a little Yankee Doodle Dandy." So we did a little Yankee Doodle Dandy, but he never did hear me do him. No. You have a good laugh.
Thank you. What is the most challenging part about being in the industry? Like, what have you find as a challenge or the most difficult part?
Well, doing stand-up wasn't easy. We didn't. I sound like the old timer. We didn't have Laugh Factory or any of those things, or the improv or anything. We always did it. I worked mostly in jazz clubs because my manager, as I said, of 22 years, before I met him, managed Thelonious Monk and Mose Allison, who were into jazz. And he had access to a lot of clubs in and around the Village in New York, Greenwich Village, and other places. And so I came out and more or less interrupted the music and did my stand-up in between their gigs, and that's how I got really good start in the Village doing that. Worked with a lot of great jazz musicians and singers and what have you, O.C. Smith and people like that.
Yeah. Right. I could never do stand-up. I would feel like I'd bomb. I couldn't do stand-up.
Hey, listen to me. There's nothing worse than that. But you have to go through it. You have to fight it out. It's just you go through your embarrassing moments when you have the wrong crowd, you have the wrong audience, or they weren't. And you have to just get over it. You just have to not let it bother you. I had a terrible experience in one of the Playboy clubs. Playboy was a whole resort. They had even their own landing strip and pools and what have you. And I was working one night, and this guy had in a crowded room on a Saturday night, and the guy had his foot on the stage. It was like a little lip kind of a stage, and I had a trio behind me, musicians, and I did Mathis and people like that. And he would just keep interrupting me. And I kept waiting for the maitre d' or somebody to come down and go up, and it never happened. and I just kept saying to Nietzsche, "Oh, Baba, no, don't do that. Oh, don't say that. Oh, wait, don't sing anymore. Don't do that." You know, and it was heartbreaking. And I went back to my room, and my son was with me at the time. He was about 13. We were making a model airplane in the room, and he looked at my face and he says, "What happened, Dad?" And I told him, and I said, "I feel pretty bad, Don. I don't know what to do." He said, "Let's get back to building the plane," and that got me out of it for a while. And then I was still feeling really bad. And the next morning, the girls I was working with, the singers, and they invited me to go out on the off the side of the golf course where they have a picnic with them. And I said okay, and I don't know if they had heard about the night before or not, but Donnie and I go over there, and they had wonderful baskets made up by the people at the Playboy Club. And it was wonderful, and I was still feeling kind of lousy about it. And two guys come along in their golf cart, walking with their golf carts and their golf bags, and one of them comes over, a big guy, and he says, "We came all the way from Detroit to see you, John, and we're sorry about that guy last night. And if it makes you feel any better, we followed him into the restroom and gave him a stomach ache." and I felt okay, I'm back. And that night I went in to do my into my dressing room. The next night I go and the maitre d' comes in. He has this accent like this, like a German guy, And he says, "Oh, Mr. Byner, I'm sorry I couldn't get to that fellow last night because of the crowd." I said, "Yeah," I mumbled something at him, and he was fired the next day. Because he upset the whole damn show.
Mm-hmm. Only in show business.
Yeah. There's no people like show people. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any upcoming... Well, let's talk about your book, 5 Minutes, Mr. Byner.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. Yes, that's a story of my beginnings and middles, and you never end in this business unless you expire. Because there's always something that got you doing.
Right.
Yeah. So it's a fun book, and people love it, and they can order it by Amazon. Thank you for mentioning it. 5 Minutes, Mr. Byner. If for people who don't understand what the 5 minutes is, that's when you work in clubs and work in things. They'll knock on the door before you go on and say, 5 minutes, Mr. Byner. And that's when you straighten your tie, or you take care of what you're taking care of, and get ready to stand out in the wings and wait to be announced.
Absolutely.
And it's also it says 5 minutes, Mr. Byner, with a picture of me on the cover, and a lifetime of laughter is added to it.
Yeah, right.
Because you can't beat that for a lifetime, huh? Laughing all the time.
Laughing is good for the soul,
Oh yeah. Yes, there certainly is. It's always good. It's always good.
I love to make people happy, make people laugh, because if you make people laugh, you get their mind off whatever troubles they have, even if it's just for a little bit,
Yeah, for a second or two. Some people, they just have the weight of the world on their shoulders, and you get them out of it for 5 seconds. It's a gift. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I also want to mention the Ant And The Aardvark, which was a cartoon you did for, it was Friz Freeling.
Batty Freeling.
Yeah.
I think 69 and 70, it was 17 of them for the theater. It was done for the theater. Motion picture theater. They'd show that between, when there were two pictures in the same theater at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cartoons. And they had the greatest band music. They had like the greatest jazz musicians. Guys like Ray Brown, Billy Byers, Pete Gondoli, Shelley Mann, Jimmy Ross, Tommy. It just goes on.
Mm-hmm.
Tedesco. Yeah, Tedesco. Yeah, Tommy Tedesco. I can't get that out. But there it is, Tommy Tedesco. And they were the first ones to ever get billing I mean, the credit on the film.
Mhm.
You know, they had their names, music by, and they had their names there. First time ever on a cartoon.
Yeah.
That's a fact. You know, when you play that game, you know that people don't know.
Mhm.
You can use that.
Yeah. And the Aardvark, you did the voice. It was a Jackie Mason, and I noticed a little bit of Joey Bishop too. You kind of
Yeah, it was a little bit of that. You have a good ear. You have a very good ear. Yeah, there was a little bit of that in there. You know, yeah. I want you to go to the picnic. I don't think I'll go to the picnic. What do you mean? You are the picnic. You know? Yeah, I had a fun tune. That's fun the way you do. You've done some voices, haven't you?
Yeah, but not characters. Mostly narrations and voiceovers. But I've done a few characters, but that's not really my forte. No.
But the thing is, you know, you go into the booth and you got the words down there on the paper, or they'll tell you to, you know, and they're saying, okay, John, now you're in love with the butterfly now, so you know, and so. But the thing is, you can just go in there, wear anything, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and have a good time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I remember another voiceover you did. It was a Disney film, The Black Cauldron. You were
Oh yeah.
Gurgi. Yeah.
But I took they wanted a different voice, and they remembered this thing I did way back on the Gary Moore show when he came back for just a few weeks. It didn't last too long, but Pete Barbuti and Lily Tomlin and people like that were on it with me, and I had this character voice. This way.
Mm-hmm.
This guy talks like this. Hey, everybody, listen to me. You know, and so I did this. Felix Fossaditi was his name, the character's name, and he was an animal psychologist. Yeah, maybe you can see some of that on YouTube. I don't know if any of that's there, but there's a lot of the Bizarre Show and stuff on YouTube, and even the what we just talked about, the Ant And The Aardvark, is on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I just found out the other day.
Yeah, a lot of your work is on YouTube. I know a movie you did, Murder Can Hurt You. That's on YouTube.
Yeah, that was a kick. That was a kick too. Yeah.
Yeah. How did that name come about? Did you have any input
Hey,
on
it's funny you should ask, because here's one down, and you are the only, aside from my immediate family, are the only new people that know this story. Because you asked that question. It's amazing you would ask that question. Okay, we showed up rehearsal, and we get the book, and it's Murder Can Hurt You. Murder Can Kill You, right?
Mm-hmm.
Murder Can Kill You. So it's an off take on all the popular murder people, you know, the different characters that were on the television at the time. They had a lot of those people, you know. Yeah, and so we had actors, including myself and other people, pretending to be those people that were playing these people. And Starsky and Hutch, I was Starsky, I think, or Hutch. I was Hutch, I think, and Jamie Farr was Starsky. And anyhow, we show up for that, and I say to Connie Stevens, she was in it. I say to Connie Stevens, when we closed the books and we were all having coffee and standing around waiting to hear what we got to do next, and I said, you know, Murder Can Hurt You. Murder Can Hurt You is better than Murder Can Kill You. I think that's a lot of fun. It's funny, and it puts you in a better mood than thinking, oh my God, you know, murder can hurt. You know, murder can hurt you rather than murder can kill you. And so that's where so the next day I show up for work, and Connie comes over to me with this cake, and on the cake it has, Murder Can Hurt You. She had told the producers, and that's what they went with. So there you are. That's how that came about.
Your idea, yeah.
Well, it was their idea. I just put a little nod in it, you know, a little fun part. Murder Can Hurt You.
Right.
Yeah. So there, and I'm glad you asked that question. Now the world knows.
My next question to you is, what is your advice to people who want to get into the industry? What is your advice to people who want to be an actor, a comedian, an impressionist? What are your words of wisdom to them?
Well, if you're just kind of trying it out to see if you can try it out, to see if you can try it out. But if you develop a passion for what you want to do, if you have enough people laughing at you, enough people applauding after you sing, whatever it is, and that gives you that impetus to just keep on going, and you keep on going, and you keep on going. And the thing is, the positive thing is, I took the words right out of my own mouth. You think positively all the time. And if somebody throws a penny at your stage and this and that, they're just jealous. They just want to get attention, and they probably bored everybody in the car on the way to the show. So you just keep on pushing and keep on considering the source, and that's all I can say is really, really get into it. Get into it to have a passion. I worked little stupid jobs to pay my rent and to feed my kids, and I had people just try to discourage me that wanted me to stay on the job. And in fact, one day I worked in a stationery store in Rockville Center, Long Island, and a guy named Bernie who ran it said, "Hey, John, what are you doing these little shows for? You don't want to do that. He says, here's a guy on the phone, and he can tell you to stay with Bernie. He'll tell you that." And he says, he hands me this phone. He says, "Hey, John, you want to be a comedian? Do you know how many comedians are starving out there? How much time do you do?" I said, "Well, I got about 25. Nah, you need an hour and a half, So there you are, That could have been it. I picked my way into different places. Between jobs, I found pumping gas or whatever I had to do to feed the family, and suddenly it started working.
Do you think people that want to be in this industry should have a backup plan? Something to fall back on?
Oh, it's always great to have something to back on. Go back on. It always is. And I had done so many jobs. I was a plumber's apprentice. I set type for a stationary transport clearinghouse, and various and sundries, and I have all those things to fall back on. But plumbing has changed now. They got plastic instead of the copper pipes. I'd have to get into that.
You've been in the industry so long, a lot of your backup plans, the aspects kind of changed.
I just use them around the house now.
Yeah.
When possible, yeah.
Yeah, I don't really have a backup plan because I've been in it so long, 10 years. I really, I enjoy doing it, and I'm on disability because of my autism, and I have kind of that to fall back on, a nice cushion, but I just enjoy interviewing and doing theater and voice narrations.
Well, there you are. You like it, you love what you do, and you have a passion for it, and you have a good way of making people feel at home and comfortable, and you have a gift.
Well, thank
you. And you're using it, and that's a wonderful thing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. That means a lot.
Yeah.
Well, John, thank you very much for letting me talk to you. It's been a pleasure, and you've made me laugh.
Welcome. You're very welcome. I appreciate your inviting me.
Absolutely, and I'll send you the interview will be up tomorrow, so I'll send you a link, and you can share it to your friends, and whatever you want to do wonderful. With it.
That's wonderful, and God bless you, and enjoy the spring.
Thank you. God bless you, and you have a great night.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye-bye. And that was actor, comedian, and impressionist, Mr. John Byner. Thank you very much for listening, and as always, God bless.